Looking back at history, Han Xin had never lost a single battle in his entire life, yet when the empire was already pacified, he died at the hands of a woman. Huo Kubing once defeated the Xiongnu for the imperial court with unmatched prestige, but his life was cut short at a young age. Guan Yu shook the entirety of Wuxia, yet when his career reached its peak, he was betrayed and killed by allies. Zhuge Liang and Liu Bei were regarded as the perfect example of lord and minister, but in the end they still failed to accomplish the great task of restoring the Han dynasty. Yue Fei advanced to Huanglong in his campaigns, yet was recalled by 12 golden imperial edicts. His merits turned to nothing, and he suffered an unjust death in prison. However, the protagonist of our story today, after achieving victory and fame, was able to retreat safely with his whole body intact, a feat that, in history, among those meritorious officials whose Gonggol Geizhe merits eclipsed their sovereign, almost no one could accomplish. In the Zizhi Tongjian, Guo Ziyi was evaluated thus: his achievements covered the world but did not arouse the emperor's suspicion. His vast power did not provoke the jealousy of the officials. His noble and wealthy appearance did not draw slander. How then did Guo Ziyi manage to achieve all of this? At the age of 20, Guo Ziyi participated in the military examination and entered officialdom ranked first. Yet such outstanding performance did not make his career smooth. At that time, many famous generals of the Great Tang had already been enfeoffed as marquises and prime ministers by the age of 40. But Guo Ziyi, the most exceptional among them, had not yet been granted any title by nearly 40 and even narrowly escapes death. In Xinzhou, Guo Ziyi became entangled in some affair, though the exact offense was not recorded in historical texts. Fortunately, a famous figure acted out of righteousness to save him, not only saving Guo Ziyi's life, but also indirectly prolonging the Great Tang's destiny for another 150 years. That person was none other than the immortal poet Li Bai, renowned throughout the realm and regarded as a top-tier literary figure of the Tang dynasty. With Li Bai's help, Guo Ziyi escaped punishment, but his path of advancement in the bureaucracy remained extremely slow for 20 years. It was not until the age of 57 that he was appointed Jidushi of Shuofang, taking command of troops. When the An Lushan rebellion erupted, Guo Ziyi welcomed a turning point, being appointed Jidushi of Shuofang, and from then on he stepped into the ranks of marquises and prime ministers. Yet, despite having endured countless hardships to attain wealth and honor, Guo Ziyi remained calm and ungreedy. At the age of 57, when his mother passed away, he resigned his post and returned home to observe filial mourning. After completing 3 years of mourning, Guo Ziyi was already 60. At that time, everyone believed his official career was finished with no hope of revival. Unexpectedly, Guo Ziyi's legendary chapter had only just begun. When the An Lushan rebellion broke out, the frontier general An Lushan led 150,000 rebel troops from Fanyang, sweeping forward like bamboo splitting under the blade, their forces pressing directly toward the eastern capital, Luoyang. At that time, the Jidushi of Shuofang was An Shishun, a cousin of An Lushan. Since An Lushan had rebelled, the court naturally dared not let An Shishun continue in his post. Amid this upheaval, the previously unknown Guo Ziyi unexpectedly received an imperial edict of appointment, and from then on he rose in a single leap to become the Jidushi of Shuofang. Emperor Xuanzong of Tang immediately ordered Guo Ziyi to assume office. The opportunity to display his talents that he had long awaited had finally arrived. Although already 59, he did not care about his age, personally donned armor, and led the Shuofang troops, together with the great general Li Guangbi and the Huairen forces, fighting bravely on the Hedong battlefield. They won consecutive victories, dealt heavy blows to the rebels, and his reputation spread far and wide. In fact, between Guo Ziyi and Li Guangbi, there had been a situation like two tigers cannot share one mountain. Yet for the sake of the nation's greater good, Guo Ziyi set aside personal grudges and immediately recommended Li Guangbi as Jiedashi of Hedong. Li Guangbi did not betray this trust. He quickly retook Changshan commandery and also decisively defeated the rebel general Shi Siming's main force on the banks of the Haida River. Shi Siming, one of the key rebel generals in the Anlushan rebellion, was still unwilling to concede after defeat, so he ordered the severing of the supply route to Changshan commandery, plunging the place into shortage. Li Guangbi fell into grave danger. Upon hearing this, Guo Ziyi immediately led 100,000 troops to reinforce him, joining forces with Li Guangbi. The two men, once unfriendly, now became the closest allies. Their combined force of 100,000 troops first captured Yumen, then advanced to attack Zhao and Jin. After smashing through Zhao and Jin, the Tang troops inside the city freely plundered wealth and goods. Seeing this, Li Guangbi was furious and said, "What you are doing is no different from the rebels." He immediately ordered all looted property to be recovered and returned to the people. Guo Ziyi understood clearly that among the captured rebel soldiers, many had been forced into battle, so he ordered that only the leaders be punished and released all the others. After that, the two of them again crushed Shi Siming's main force in the Jiashan region, annihilating 40,000 enemies and forcing Shi Siming to flee in a disastrous defeat. These actions by the two earned the unanimous support of the people of Hebei. Other prefectures and counties also began to rise in spontaneous uprisings against the rebels. More than 10 prefectures and counties in Hebei voluntarily returned to the Tang map. From then on, Guo and Li successfully severed the connection between Anlushan's main forces and the base at Fanyang. Anlushan, trapped in Luoyang, was like a fish in a barrel. At this moment, Guo Ziyi was like a phoenix spreading its wings, his momentum boundless, fighting with increasing strength, his advance like splitting bamboo. Therefore, he began submitting memorials to the court, requesting permission to march directly on Fanyang and Lushan's headquarters. But Guo Ziyi never received a reply from the court, because at that time an enormous upheaval had occurred within the imperial government. Li Longji abandoned Chang'an, while his son Li Heng remained in Guanzhong to handle military affairs. A month later, he led 2,000 soldiers straight to Lingwu, and there, on his own initiative, he ascended the throne and proclaimed himself emperor, who would later be known as Tang Suzong. From this moment, Guo Ziyi was drawn onto an even larger stage of history. Upon hearing that Chang'an had fallen and that Crown Prince Li Heng had proclaimed himself emperor at Lingwu, Guo Ziyi decisively abandoned the advantage he held in Hebei. He led 50,000 troops out of Hebei, hurrying to Lingwu to protect the new sovereign. Guo Ziyi understood that only by consolidating imperial authority could the morale of the various armies be stabilized and the chance to fight a decisive battle against the rebels arise. After Guo Ziyi's departure, the rebel general Shi Siming seized Changshan, once again reconnecting the rebels' north-south route. The new emperor Li Heng was overjoyed when Guo Ziyi arrived to guard him, moved almost to tears. In truth, ever since Li Heng and his father Emperor Xuanzong had gone their separate ways, he had lived in fear and anxiety. At the beginning, he had only 2,000 troops, and in such chaotic times, without a strong force behind him, even his own life would have been difficult to preserve. The 50,000 troops under Guo Ziyi provided Li Heng with a solid foundation and relieved him of worries for his safety. Li Heng immediately appointed Guo Ziyi as Minister of War and Supreme Commander of Military Affairs under heaven. From that moment, Guo Ziyi, the central pillar in suppressing the Enshi rebellion, truly stepped onto the critical stage of history. At that time, Guo Ziyi held command of elite forces, and his path as imperial supporter became ever broader. If Guo Ziyi could be compared to Han Xin during the Anqi rebellion, then the next person to appear could be likened to Zhang Liang, perhaps even surpassing him. This man, who carried in his heart an extraordinary plan to pacify the Anqi rebellion and came to Lingwu, was Li Mi. Li Mi had been praised as a child prodigy at age 6. When he grew up, He was erudite, deeply versed in the Zhou Yi and the philosophy of Lao and Zhuang, capable of predicting the rise and fall of dynastic fortune, and skilled in devising strategies. When he was young, Li Longji had heard of his reputation and summoned him to court. At that time, Li Mi was still a boy, yet he could engage in spirited discussions with the chancellors Zhang Yue and Zhang Jiuling. Zhang Jiuling valued him greatly and often called him little friend. When Li Heng was crown prince, he was even closer to Li Mi. They went out together and played side by side, regarded as childhood companions. However, Li Mi had no desire for officialdom, preferring instead to wander freely among rivers and mountains. When he came of age, he began to travel far and wide, roaming unrestrained under the sky. After Li Heng ascended the throne, he sent people to seek out this old confidant. It is worth noting that Li Mi's ancestors during Western Wei held positions equal to those of Li Shimon's ancestors, all counted among the 8 pillar states of Western Wei. Moreover, the famous leader Li Mi of Xiaku, well known to all, was Li Mi's great-grandfather. Li Mi's superior plan, capable of pacifying the Anxi rebellion completely within 2 years, could be summed up in 2 words: consume the enemy. He proposed to Li Heng that Guo Ziyi should seize Hedong Commandery to threaten the eastern capital Luoyang. Meanwhile, Li Guangbi should launch attacks from Hebei, pressing the rebels' old base at Fanyang. As for His Majesty, he should personally lead troops to Fengxiang to exert pressure on Chang'an. What must be especially noted was that they must never cut off the supply routes between the 2 rebel forces they had to ensure the rebels' reinforcement lines always remained open. Later on, Your Majesty, Guo Ziyi and Li Guangbi led 3 separate forces, taking turns to launch military operations. The enemy would inevitably be thrown into confusion, rushing everywhere to provide reinforcements, while our army would retreat when the enemy advances, harass when the enemy camps, strike when the enemy divides, and pursue when the enemy retreats. If the rebels attacked us, we would strike their rear. If they returned to defend their base, we would attack them head-on. It was like toying with a troop of monkeys, forcing them to run thousands of miles until exhaustion soon overcame them. At that point, we could temporarily ignore Chang'an and Luoyang, directly attack Fanyang, and destroy their foundation. When the rebels were driven into a desperate situation with no way out, we would then commit our full strength to seize Chang'an and Luoyang, and peace under heaven would surely be restored. Li Heng, upon hearing this, repeatedly praised the plan as brilliant and immediately acted upon it. Shortly afterward, he ordered Guo Ziyi to march and capture Hedong Commandery. Guo Ziyi did not disappoint expectations. He swiftly seized Hedong Commandery. Just as he was preparing to carry out the second step of the wearing down the enemy strategy, an unexpected change occurred. Emperor Li Heng changed his mind. It turned out that while Guo Ziyi was attacking Hedong, troops from Longyu, Hexi, Anxi and the western regions had successively gathered at Fengxiang, where Li Heng was stationed. Moreover, the Jiangwei region had not fallen into rebel hands, so grain and supplies continuously flowed to Fengxiang. At this moment, with such powerful forces at hand, Li Heng was overjoyed. What delighted him even more was that turmoil had broken out within the rebel ranks. Their leader An Lushan had been killed by his own son, An Qingshu, and Qingshu seized power successfully, becoming the new leader of the rebels. The An Lushan rebellion thus entered a new phase. From this point on, An Qingshu officially took control. When Li Heng heard the news, he was overjoyed beyond measure. He believed that our army was now strong and well led, and with the rebels having just experienced internal upheaval, there was no need to march on their stronghold. Clearly, this was an excellent opportunity to recapture Chang'an and Luoyang. Li Mi, upon hearing this, was so angered that his fury surged to his heart, and he said, "Your Majesty, we had already discussed the strategy earlier. If we now seize the 2 capitals, we may succeed for the moment, but once the rebels withdraw to their base at Fanyang, I fear we will struggle to respond." In the future, they will surely raise troops again and cause disaster. This is absolutely not a long-term plan. Li Heng disagreed and retorted, "I do not accept this." "How can you be so certain that once the rebels withdraw to their headquarters, we will have no strength to confront them?" Li Mi patiently explained. "Your Majesty, most of our soldiers come from the northwest. They do not fear the cold, but they cannot bear the heat. If we now march to seize the two capitals and then press on all the way to Fanyang, by then the weather will have turned hot, which will be extremely disadvantageous for our operations." Yet Li Heng was resolute and said, "Sir, this time I will temporarily follow your advice, but my heart burns like fire. I only wish to recover the two capitals soon and welcome back the retired emperor, my father Li Longji." Thus, Li Heng recalled Guo Ziyi and appointed him supreme commander of all imperial forces, giving him full command to prepare for the recapture of Chang'an. As expected, events unfolded exactly as Li Mi had foreseen. Until his death, Li Heng was never able to fully recover Hebei, and even the Zhongtang region remained outside imperial control for a long time. Therefore, Li Heng issued the order to advance on Chang'an. But at that time, the troops under Guo Ziyi's command were hardly sufficient to bear the responsibility alone. He therefore advised Li Heng to borrow troops from the Uyghurs. Guo Ziyi understood well the strength of the Huihu forces. Subsequently, not only did the Huihu army arrive, but even their crown prince personally led their troops. By then, the Great Tang had fully prepared for a decisive battle with the rebels. Under Guo Ziyi's command, the troops of Shuofang and various prefectures, combined with the allied forces from the western regions, altogether numbering 150,000 and publicly declared as 200,000, formed a mighty army with soaring morale, marching in grand force toward Chang'an. The rebels also realized that this was to be the final decisive battle and concentrated 100,000 elite troops to meet them. The much-anticipated battle at Shangji Temple was about to commence. Guo Ziyi's choice of Shangji Temple as the battleground had been made with careful consideration. His previous attempts to retake Chang'an had failed because the rebels' main strength was cavalry, and the battlefield at that time had been too flat and open, allowing enemy cavalry to fully exploit their advantage. Learning from this, Guo Ziyi deliberately selected Shangji Temple to set his formation. As Wang Wei's poem described, the ancient graves of Xiangji Temple, in a place rarely visited by men, hidden deep within mountains hard to find. The surroundings of Shangji Temple were covered with dense ancient forests, and paths were scarce. Such terrain, first, greatly limited the maneuverability of cavalry, and second, was highly convenient for arranging ambushes. And the ambush strategy was precisely the key to victory or defeat in the Battle of Shangji Temple. On the rebel side, the main commander was An Shouzhong, the very man who had previously defeated Guo Ziyi, seasoned and deeply experienced. He also understood well that the terrain around Xiangji Temple was perfectly suited for an ambush. Guo Ziyi's plan was to send his vanguard to engage head-on, while dispatching a hidden force to strike directly at the enemy's rear, using a front and rear pincer movement to annihilate the foe. And Shouzhong's strategy was similar: engage with his vanguard and position an ambush to attack the Tang rear, hoping likewise to destroy the entire opposing army with a pincer. Thus, the issue was clear. On the treacherous mountain battlefield of Shangji Temple, whichever side's ambush succeeded would be the victor. Whoever struck first would seize the whole advantage. The vanguard played a decisive role. If either side's vanguard collapsed under pressure, their ambush force would lose its chance and conditions to act. On the rebel side, the vanguard was led by the General Li Guiren, commanding elite cavalry. On the Tang side, Guo Ziyi chose his finest infantry to fight. This unit traced its origins back to Li Shimin's time, created by the divine general Li Jing specifically to counter cavalry. Some even claimed the fighting strength of this force could match the mighty Xuanzhe army of Li Shimin. Their hallmark was that each soldier wielded a long saber 3.3 meters in length, and weighing 20 jin. They were the world-renowned Tang Demon Blade Unit, commanded by the Demon Blade General Li Xie. At noon, the two sides officially clashed. The rebel general Li Guiren rode forth to provoke, and the Tang vanguard responded. The rebels feigned retreat, the Tang troops pursued, and the rebel main force suddenly charged. Under the fierce assault of the rebel cavalry, the Tang army fell into confusion. The vanguard commander Li Xie saw the danger and shouted loudly, "If we do not use our bodies to block the enemy today, then surely the whole army will be destroyed." With that, he cast off his armor, swung his great saber, and unleashed a terrifying display of skill. It is said that wherever his blade passed, men and horses were cut down, and dozens of enemies perished beneath Li Xie's weapon. His fearless valor inspired the entire army. He and the Demon Blade unit used their own flesh and blood to block the enemy's charge. Facing the violent onslaught of the rebel cavalry, the Tang troops formed a steel wall that could not be broken. The rebels' vanguard advanced like an iron flood. The Tang general Wang Nande was struck in the face by an enemy arrow tearing his flesh. He immediately drew his sword, cut away the flap of flesh obscuring his vision, and plunged back into the fight. As the main forces of both sides battled fiercely, unable to gain an upper hand, Guo Ziyi anxiously awaited crucial news. The terrain around Shangji Temple was perfectly suited for ambushes, and Guo Ziyi knew the rebels could see that too. Thus, as soon as the battle began, he sent Chiho to scout for hidden enemy troops. At last, Chiho returned to report that south of the rebels' main camp there was indeed an ambush force. Guo Ziyi, overjoyed, thought the moment had come. He immediately ordered the General Pugu Huayan to lead a cavalry detachment straight to the ambush position and charge suddenly. The rebel ambush force was completely unprepared for such an unexpected attack. They fell into chaos, broke apart, and were destroyed without time to resist. When the rebel army heard that their ambush troops had been wiped out, their morale collapsed like a crushed eggplant. Their formation dissolved into disorder. Pugu Huayan then led the remaining cavalry around behind the enemy and, coordinating with Guo Ziyi's central army, executed a front and rear assault. The rebels, struck by this fierce attack, broke completely and their defensive line crumbled. This life or death showdown between two regimes with a total of 300,000 troops ended in only one afternoon. Before the sun had fully set, the blood-red sunset dyed the horizon and the sky itself blazed crimson like the earth. The Battle of Shangji Temple thus became famous across the land. In just a single afternoon, 70,000 Tang soldiers perished, while 60,000 rebels were cut down. On average, 20,000 men fell on the battlefield every hour, a level of carnage difficult to imagine. The remnant of the rebel army fled hastily toward Chang'an, but knowing they could not hold the city, they withdrew under cover of night. From that moment, after a year and 3 months of loss, Chang'an at last returned to Tang hands. After reclaiming Chang'an, Guo Ziyi immediately led his troops eastward, advancing like a blade through bamboo, rapidly retaking Tongguan, Huayin, and Hongnong. Then, at Xindian, he joined forces with the Huihu cavalry, and together they once again shattered the rebel main force. Seeing the situation hopeless and beyond recovery, the rebel leader An Qingshu fled Luoyang with his remaining troops, retreating to Xiangzhou. The people of Luoyang, upon hearing that An Qingshu had fled, felt both joy and fear. They worried about being treated like sacrificial goats, becoming the target for Tang troops to vent their anger. Therefore, when the Tang army entered the city, the citizens did not, as usual, greet them with tearful welcomes. Instead, they proactively offered 10,000 donkeys and earnestly begged the Huihu to spare their lives. From then on, the Great Tang finally restored the two capitals. Emperor Suzong Li Heng felt as though a great burden had been lifted. In his heart, he thought that now that the two capitals had been recovered, this achievement was as brilliant as the 18 stars. just like the 28 generals of Yuntai who once assisted Liu Shu in reversing dire circumstances and founding the Eastern Han. Without them, there would have been no Eastern Han. At that time, only two paths lay before Liu Shu. One was to resist immediately, avenge his elder brother, and fight the emperor to the death. The other was to temporarily endure humiliation, preserve his life first, and wait for an opportunity to reclaim what had been lost. Just a few days earlier, his closest elder brother, Liu Yan, had been lured to Wancheng under false pretenses and executed on a fabricated charge. Liu Yan had held real power, yet the throne was seized from him. The one who struck the blow was actually the comrade who had once fought alongside him to build their cause. At that moment, Liu Shu was only a nominal general. When he heard the news of his brother's misfortune, he went alone to Wancheng, knelt before the enemy who had killed his brother, and without anger or reproach, calmly said, "My brother was killed because we did not do well enough. I beg you for forgiveness." Liu Shu and Liu Yan were 9th generation descendants of Emperor Gaozu of Han Liu Bang. Because their Liu family had lost the realm, the brothers rose in rebellion. At first, their power was small. Liu Yan proactively allied with the largest insurgent force at the time, the Lulin army. The two sides merged, and their power quickly grew. Liu Yan smoothly seized the key city of Wancheng, while Liu Shu achieved a glorious military feat, leading 20,000 troops to defeat the main force of Wang Mang's 420,000 army. It seemed they could now rise up and restore the Han dynasty. Yet just as victory was within reach, the Lulin army suddenly turned against them, forcing Liu Yan to yield power to another member of the Liu clan, Liu Xuan. The reason was simple. Liu Xuan was honest and easy to control. Rather than let an ambitious and capable man like Liu Yan hold power, it was safer to install a pliable puppet. Thus, Liu Xuan lost his brother. They also lost the imperial throne that should have been theirs. When Liu Shu knelt before Liu Xuan, it was not an act of surrender, but a way to preserve his life so he could one day reverse the situation. Liu Xuan truly believed him, thinking Liu Xie lacked ambition and was no threat, and so released him. At that time, Wang Mang's main forces had already been shattered by Liu Shu, the situation had rapidly reversed, and Wang Mang's regime collapsed. Liu Xuan seized the opportunity to march on Chang'an, while large and small factions across the realm submitted one after another. On the surface, Liu Xuan's power seemed to have reached its peak, as though he was about to unify the realm, but in reality, the situation was far less optimistic. Among the people, a saying circulated, "Its success or failure lies not with the red eyebrows, its gain or loss lies in Hebei." The meaning was that if Liu Xuan truly wanted to sit securely on the throne, he had to resolve two major problems, the Qimei army and the Hebei region. The Qimei army was another insurgent force, rising around the same time as the Lulin army. They fought fiercely, had abundant troops, and posed a direct threat to Liu Xuan's regime. Setting that issue aside for the moment, we must first speak of Hebei, which was even more challenging. Hebei was distant, and within Liu Xuan's system of control, was like a peripheral nerve. His ability to govern it was very weak. Yet it was a place of many soldiers and strong generals, rich in resources, and a strategically vital region. If Liu Xuan could not secure Hebei, his throne would be unstable. Although most of Hebei's commanderies and counties outwardly expressed willingness to submit, their true attitude was mere surface compliance while inwardly resisting. Liu Xuan believed it necessary to send a capable person to pacify and fully secure this region. But whom should he send? At court, the officials each had their own opinion. Some recommended Zhang San, others suggested Li Si, causing a noisy debate. At that moment, Liu Ji, a member of the imperial clan, stepped forward and said, "I recommend Liu Shu." As soon as these words were spoken, mocking laughter broke out. Everyone thought this was self-serving nepotism, an audacious attempt to promote a kinsman. Liu Ji said no more, and the atmosphere fell silent. Shortly after, Tao Jing, the son of the left prime minister, stood up and said, "I also recommend Liu Xue. This man is not only skilled in battle, but also obedient and steady. Sending him to Hebei is most appropriate." Liu Xuan nodded in agreement and decided to dispatch Liu Xiu. But why did Tao Jing suddenly support Liu Xiu? The reason was not complicated. He had received gifts from Feng Yi. Feng Yi was a close associate of Liu Xiu, always following and assisting him with loyal devotion. After Liu Xiu's elder brother Liu Yan was killed, Liu Xiu still maintained a calm appearance, even showing some coldness, which made outsiders think he was heartless. But Feng Yi could see through it. He understood that the calmer Liu Xiu appeared, the deeper the sorrow he carried in his heart. One night, Feng Yi said to his commander, "Elder brother, are you still sitting here weeping at this hour? If you do not act now, the final opportunity will truly be lost." Liu Xie asked, "What opportunity?" Feng Yi explained clearly, "Right now, Liu Xuan is selecting someone to take charge of Hebei, and this is a critical post. If you are appointed, that means you will hold official authority. Then you can openly recruit troops throughout Hebei and gather your power. As long as you handle it well, those who now serve the court will become your own forces." Liu Xuan still hesitated. "But why would Liu Xuan choose me?" Feng Yi reminded him, "The son of the left chancellor, Cao Jing, is a man who only cares for money. As long as you give enough, he will certainly speak up." Liu Xiu understood at once and quickly gave Cao Jing a large sum of money. As expected, at the court meeting, Cao Jing immediately recommended him. Liu Xuan, going with the flow, entrusted Hebei to Liu Xiu. From then on, Liu Xiu officially escaped Liu Xuan's direct control and secured a space for independent development. For him, this was not merely an external appointment, but a chance to turn his fate. The journey to Hebei would become the turning point of his life. In this place, his future 28 great generals would gradually gather, laying the foundation for the unification of the realm. Feng Yi had originally been a clerk under the governor of Yingchuan during Wang Mang's time. When Liu Xiu rose in rebellion against Yingchuan, the governor, hearing of the enemy's rapid advance, sent Feng Yi to scout various places. When he reached Fucheng, he encountered Liu Xiu and was immediately captured. Seeing that Feng Yi was a learned man, Liu Xiu wished to keep him, but Feng Yi said, "I am only a scholar and cannot be of help. My elderly mother needs my care. Better to let me return to guard the city, and someday I will repay this kindness." Liu Xiu, hearing this, truly released him. On his way back, Feng Yi kept thinking, "For Liu Xian to spare me shows a generous heart. Surely he is no ordinary man." Not long after, he truly submitted to Liu Xian. From a mere lowly clerk under Liu Xiu's command, he advanced step by step until he finally became the Grand General guarding the state. Not long after Liu Xiu arrived in Hebei, a young man came from south of the Yellow River, walking north with only a staff. His name was Deng Yu. From childhood, he was a prodigy, able to recite the Book of Songs by heart at age 13. In earlier years, when he had gone to Chang'an to study, he had met Liu Xiu and from then on became a follower. Later, when he grew up, although many invited him to take office, he always refused. But upon hearing that Liu Xiu had gone to Hebei, he set out at once without hesitation. When Liu Xiu met him, he was overjoyed and even teased. "You see me holding a high post in Hebei and wish to come seek some official rank, don't you?" Deng Yu smiled and replied, "It is not for an office, but because I hope you will shake the four seas with your power, and I too may contribute some strength and leave a name." Afterward, Deng Yu offered strategies to Liu Xiu, outlining how to organize Hebei. He said Liu Xuan as emperor was both immoral and incompetent, and his ministers valued money over men. Such a situation would surely collapse sooner or later. He advised Liu Xiu to rely on Hebei and advance steadily step by step if he wished to achieve great success later. He proposed two key measures. First, win the hearts of the people. Second, recruit talented men. He emphasized that talent was the key to victory or defeat. Liu Xiu agreed wholeheartedly and began implementing this throughout Hebei. He redressed grievances for the people, lightened their labor burdens, and won their hearts. He welcomed pardoned criminals and enlisted wandering knights, bringing them into his ranks. At the same time, he sent men to build relationships with local officials, recruiting anyone willing to cooperate. Liu Xiu valued Deng Yu highly, treating him as his own Xiaohe. Later, among the 28 generals of the Cloud Terrace, many entered Liu Xiu's service thanks to Deng Yu's recommendations. One could say Deng Yu was the personnel chief of Liu Xiu's faction, and among those 28 generals, Deng Yu ranked first. That day, a middle-aged man named Liu Lin came to Liu Xiu seeking to submit. Upon meeting, Liu Lin said he had a brilliant plan to annihilate the Red Eyebrow army. Liu Xiu asked him to explain. Liu Lin replied, "The Red Eyebrows are now camped at Hedong. If we break the dikes upstream and divert the river's waters, it will sweep away their men and their camp. Hundreds of thousands of troops will be destroyed in an instant." Liu Xiu frowned. "You wish to kill the Red Eyebrows, that is fine, but the people downstream will also suffer. Doing this is no different from disregarding the lives of the common people." He was deeply repelled by such a plan that ignored human life. Liu Lin had thought he could show his talent this time, but unexpectedly, Liu Xiu showed no interest. After only a few words, he was dismissed coldly and left in disappointment. Yet, as he departed, he brooded and could not accept it. He sought out his close friend Wang Lang to drink away his sorrow. Under the influence of wine, Liu Lin's resentment boiled over. Wang Lang advised, "If you are not convinced, why not act on your own? Why must you watch another man's face?" Liu Lin replied, "Liu Xiu is, after all, a scion of the Han imperial clan, the rightful son of heaven. But you of imperial blood, that you dare to be unconvinced?" Wang Lang then laughed and said, "You know nothing. My real surname is Liu, and my name is Lu Ziyu. This name is not fabricated, it comes from an ancient story. It is said that I am the son of Emperor Cheng of Han, who later wandered among the common people." When Liu Lin heard this, he grew even more excited, slapped the table, and exclaimed, "Let's do it!" He then began spreading Wang Lang's claim of being Lu Ziyu, saying that this man was the true heir of the Han dynasty. He even distributed leaflets everywhere, spreading the rumor that the Chimei were preparing to enthrone Liu Ziyu as emperor. The local powers hearing this thought, "Even the Chimei have already chosen an emperor. What are we still hesitating for?" From the north of Jiao State to the west of Liaodong, various places responded and recognized the false Liu Ziyu. Only then did Liu Ziyu realize that Liu Lin, the man he had underestimated, had become his greatest rival in Hebei. In the 12th month of the year 23, Liu Lin captured Handan and there enthroned the pretender Liu Ziyu. This impostor, riding on a single lie, quickly seized control of the situation. A petty man in power, his first step was revenge. Liu Lin issued an edict offering a reward. Whoever brought back Liu Xiu's head would be granted 100,000 households. At that moment, a young man who had only recently submitted to Liu Xiu burst into tears and said, "Elder brother, do not fear. My father once served as governor of Taigu. The Taigu cavalry is famed as the finest under heaven. We can go there to recruit troops and help you capture Handan." Hearing this, Liu Xiu was both surprised and deeply moved. Praising him, "I did not expect someone so young to possess such heroic spirit." Then he said, "But first I must get everyone safely out of this city." Thus, Liu Xiu led his forces in a difficult escape. As they marched, heavy snow began to fall, the cold biting to the bone, the wind cutting like blades. Faces cracked in the freezing air, and they suffered from hunger and bitter cold. The situation was dire. Just as Liu Xiu was nearing despair, he suddenly encountered an old man in white robes. The elder called out, "Hurry to Zindu, the governor there is not one to surrender easily. He has watched as the surrounding cities submitted one by one to the false Liu Ziyu, yet he has remained steadfast, even beheading the envoy sent to persuade him to yield." Jindu had by then become a lonely stronghold, isolated amid enemies. Liu Xiu hurried toward Jindu, his heart uneasy. He knew the governor of Jindu was a hard man, and he was unsure whether he could persuade him. When he arrived beneath the city walls, Liu Xiu anxiously had the guards deliver a message. "I am Liu Xiu, requesting an audience with your governor." To his surprise, as soon as they heard it was Liu Xiu, the gates swung wide open. The townspeople shouted, "10,000 years!" in unison and cheered in welcome. The governor of Jindu was Ren Guang. He personally led men out to greet Liu Xiu, accompanied by two friends, Li Zhong and Wan Tu. It turned out Ren Guang had been an old comrade in arms of Liu Xiu during the Battle of Kunyang. After Liu Xuan ascended the throne, Ren Guang was assigned to Shindu as governor. Later, when he heard that the false Liu Ziyu had proclaimed himself emperor in Handan and that Liu Xiu was being hunted, he neither surrendered nor fled, for he firmly believed Liu Xiu would return. Thus, he held the city to await his old friend and help him reverse the situation. Liu Xiu, who had been at the end of his rope, now suddenly saw hope. Just yesterday, he had been fleeing for his life, but today he not only had a base of operations but also military support. The situation had turned completely. He immediately counterattacked, leading his troops on campaign, first seizing Dangyang, then capturing Xi'an County, and the momentum was excellent. On the way, he recruited two fierce generals, Liu Shi and Geng Chun. Liu Shi, who had been guarding Xiangcheng, voluntarily came to submit, while Geng Chun was even more resolute, leading more than 2,000 of his clansmen to surrender to Liu Xiu. To prevent regret or betrayal, before departing he set fire to his ancestral home, cutting off all possibility of retreat. At this point, Liu Xiu's power was now on par with that of the false Liu Ziyu, and the situation in Hebei entered a true phase of confrontation. At that time, Hebei did not have only two powers, Liu Xiu and the false Liu Ziyu. There was also a crucial figure, King of Zhendian, Liu Yang, who commanded 100,000 troops. It could be said that whoever secured Liu Yang's support would likely achieve the final victory in Hebei. To win over Liu Yang, Liu Xiu had to pay a heavy price. He married Guo Shengtong, Liu Yang's niece, through marriage. Though this union was not born of love, it was a critical political move. Guo Shengtong treated Liu Xiu coldly and spoke harshly to him, yet he never rebuked her, for through this marriage King Liu Yang became his maternal uncle and, more importantly, provided Hebei's second great gift, a reinforcement of 100,000 troops. With this aid secured, Liu Xiu's military situation dramatically improved. He quickly captured Yuanxi, Fangxi, Haoberen, Guang'e, and many other places. His offensive surged like a storm, and his next target was Handan itself. At this very moment, a cavalry force suddenly advanced toward Guang'e. The townspeople, seeing them, thought they were the Yuzhou troops of the false Liu Ziyu and panicked. Liu Xiu too was tense and climbed the city tower, calling out, "Where have you come from? Where are you going? Who commands you?" The cavalry replied, "We heard you are about to attack Handan, so we have come especially to help." Liu Xiu realized that the young man who had been lost some time ago was none other than Geng Yan. After losing contact, Geng Yan had returned alone to Taigu, persuaded his father to raise troops in support of Liu Xiu, then gathered an additional cavalry force from Nanyang, bringing 10,000 elite soldiers on campaign. Along the way, he captured Zhuo Commandery, Zhongshan, Julu, Qing'e, and Hejian, a total of 22 counties. Hearing that Liu Xiu was at Guang'e, he hurried to march his troops there to join him. With manpower complete, reinforcements arrived, and the time ripe, Liu Xiu no longer hesitated. He personally led his generals to attack Handan, winning victory after victory. The forces of the pretender Liu Ziyu were completely suppressed, and counter-offensives broke out everywhere. Seeing the situation turn against him, Liu Ziyu sent emissaries out of the city to surrender. The envoy began, "Our lord raised troops to fulfill the dying wish of Emperor Cheng of Han. We hope Duke Liu will be magnanimous." Liu Shu cut him off bluntly. Even if Emperor Cheng of Han crawled out of his grave, he could not seize the empire, let alone your master, who is no descendant at all, only an impostor. The envoy begged again. Could you not at least spare our lord's life and enfeoff him as a marquis of 10,000 households? Liu Shen sneered coldly. Concessions I can make, but I will only leave him a whole corpse. He then immediately ordered the assault. In the 24th year of Jianwu, in the 5th month, Handan fell. Wang Lang, the pretender Liu Ziyu, was cut down by Liu Shu's army on the battlefield. After entering the city, Liu Shu discovered a pile of letters showing Hebei officials colluding with Wang Lang, but he did not bother to read them. In front of everyone, he cast them into the fire, demonstrating his intent to wipe away old grudges. Seeing this, the officials of Hebei submitted at once, many of them proactively seeking to surrender. This gesture later even Cao Cao admired, praising Liu Shu as truly understanding the hearts of men. Afterward, Liu Shu pressed the advantage, sweeping away the remaining rebel forces such as Tongma and Gaohu. At that point, all of Hebei had no rival left. At the urging of those around him, Liu Shu offered a token show of humility, but ultimately accepted the situation and ascended the throne. He was then only 31 years old. He continued to invoke the name of the Han Dynasty, changing the era name to rival Liu Xuan in Chang'an for legitimacy and imperial ritual. In the winter of year 24, Liu Shu officially declared war on Liu Xuan at Ganshui, with Luoyang as his first target. At this time, the Red Eyebrow army had already approached Chang'an. Liu Xuan could not withstand them and meekly abdicated. But the Red Eyebrows did not believe such a charade, and in the end strangled and killed him. Then they carried out large-scale plundering in Chang'an, burning palaces, robbing imperial tombs. Almost every Han emperor's mausoleum suffered this calamity. Only Bailing of Emperor Wen of Han and Dueling of Emperor Xuan of Han were spared, because many Red Eyebrow soldiers came from poverty and knew well that Emperor Wen and Emperor Xuan had once been lenient and kind to the people. On Liu Shu's side, Deng Yu, only 24 years old, led troops westward, cutting down generals and crushing enemies, pacifying Shanxi. Then Liu Shu sent Feng Yi to Yaodi to smash the Red Eyebrow main force, finally forcing the Red Eyebrows to lay down their weapons and surrender. Thus, the two great peasant uprisings of Wang Mang's last years, Lulin and the Red Eyebrows, both came to an end. Liu Shu formally proclaimed to the world that he was the rightful son of heaven of the Han. From that moment, he truly sat upon the imperial throne. However, to secure the realm, he still had to sweep away the remaining hostile forces. In the following years, Liu Shu continued to campaign north and south, first recovering Shu province, then capturing Longxi. When he took Luxi, he spoke the famous words, "With Long, there is prosperity. Without Long, there is decline." He then led his army westward again, conquering Sichuan and Shu. When all the campaigns were finished, Liu Shu had completed the great enterprise of unifying the empire. In history, Liu Shu possessed two remarkable traits. First, he was the only Han emperor who both restored the dynasty and simultaneously founded a new era. Born into the imperial clan, he was like a second-generation wealthy heir, yet he did not merely rest on privilege. Starting with nothing, he carved out an empire with his own hands, becoming a classic model of entrepreneurial success. The second, even rarer, was that after unification, unlike other emperors who slaughtered their meritorious generals to eliminate future threats, Liu Shu instead ensured that the 28 comrades who had fought and bled beside him mostly met good ends. In his later years, Liu Shu often invited these brothers in arms to gather, drink wine, and reminisce about old times. Liu Shu's son with his primary wife Yin Lihua was Liu Zhuang, who would become Emperor Ming of Han. Liu Fang was a renowned general for the ages, so accomplished that even Yue Fei might not compare. He achieved 13 celebrated restorations, among which the Battle of Daizhen was famed in the annals, earning him a place among the 7 kings of southern Song. In his lifetime, He was the first general of Southern Song to concurrently hold command over 3 frontier garrisons as jidushi. Later, he was posthumously honored as a supreme military commander, enshrined in the imperial temple alongside Emperor Gaozong, an almost unparalleled honor for a Song dynasty general. Han Shizong was a general full of legendary color. If one were to speak of miraculous fortune on the battlefield and the subtlety of fate, then even if Yue Fei, Zhang Jun, and Liu Guangxi were counted together, before Han Shizong, they would seem less dazzling. Han Shizong's youth bore no trace of the extraordinary hero he would later become. In fact, one might even say his past was too shameful to look back on. Relying on his strong physique, he often bullied others in fights and acted arrogantly in his village, secretly called by the locals the thug Han Wu. A poor man without background or education like him, had he been born in a time of peace and prosperity, would likely have remained lost in the crowd. But the times create heroes. In 1105, to resist the Western Xia, the Song court recruited troops in Sweden, and Han Shizong, then not even officially registered, was conscripted. From that moment, the Han Wu thug of his hometown, to the sound of drums and gongs bidding farewell, stepped onto the path to becoming a peerless general comparable to Yue Fei. Later, Han Shizong quickly distinguished himself among the soldiers. When the Southern Song attacked Yingzhou, the Western Xia relied on strong fortifications to keep the Song army at bay. Han Shizong charged forward, broke the city's defenses, and cut down the Western Xia's commander, throwing his head from the walls. His boldness inspired the entire army, raising morale to great heights. Soon after, the Western Xia army arrived in force and the Song troops faltered. Only Han Shizong organized a unit of dare-to-die soldiers to fight to the death, and amid the chaos he even slew a Western Xia imperial son-in-law on the battlefield, causing the enemy to panic and collapse. In the Battle of Yingzhou, though only a lowly soldier, he achieved earth-shaking feats so incredible that even the commanding general found it hard to believe. Yet he was promoted only one small rank and not richly rewarded. Later, Han Shizong followed other generals in continued campaigns against Western Xia, rising step by step through courage until he became a low-ranking officer. At the end of 1120, when Fang La's peasant rebellion erupted, Han Shizong was transferred to the southeast to suppress it. From then on, he would spend his life in campaigns, never again returning home. During the suppression of Fang La's rebellion, Han Shizong once more performed remarkable deeds. In 1121, during the final assault on Guan Yu cave, he charged alone into Fang La's hideout, cut down dozens of men, and captured Fang La alive. Yet as soon as he exited the cave, the general Xin Xingzong stole the credit, seized the captive, and claimed the merit as his own. Fortunately, the general Yang Yizhong petitioned on his behalf to the court, and Han Shizong was finally rewarded and granted the title of Cheng Jielang. From the time he entered the army, although Han Shizong was extraordinarily brave and unusually fortunate on the battlefield, because he was not from a family of generals, his path of promotion was extremely difficult. At Yingzhou, he received no proper reward for his contribution, and in Fang La's case, his merit was stolen. Later, though he was made Cheng Jielang, compared to the court's promise before the campaign that those with great merit would be richly rewarded, this 9th-ranked title was little more than consolation. In 1127, the catastrophic Jingkang incident broke out in Bianjing. The city fell, the northern Song perished, and Emperor Huizong and Emperor Qinzong were captured and taken north. Afterward, Huizong's 9th son, Prince of Kang Zhaogu, narrowly escaped and proclaimed himself emperor at Yingtian Prefecture. Though Zhaogu became the founding emperor of the Southern Song, the situation for this fish that slipped through the net was extremely perilous. After destroying the Northern Song, the Jin army regarded him, the sole surviving heir of the Zhao imperial clan, as a primary target for pursuit. From the time he left Bianjing, Zhaogu fled constantly from Hebei to Shandong, from Shandong to Liangwai, hardly stopping to rest. Critically, The new emperor had very few troops at his side, making his escape even more dangerous. At the moment Zhao Gu was most vulnerable and most in need of soldiers, Zhang Jun arrived with 3,000 men, catching up with the imperial carriage at Daming Prefecture. Liu Guangxi from the northwest also joined along the route to Jizhou, becoming the second protector. Therefore, regardless of how Zhang Jun and Liu Guangxi later performed on the battlefield, their merit in guarding the emperor during peril alone ensured that in the southern Song court they thrived like fish in water, standing alongside Yue Fei, Han Shizong, and Zhang Jun as the four generals of restoration. Han Shizong was also among the first generals in Shandong to support Zhao Gu's enthronement and later escorted him through the fierce pursuit of the Jin army, bringing him to Hangzhou to ascend the throne. Judged by timing, Han Shizong's service in protecting the emperor was not as singular as Zhang Jun's or Liu Guangxi's. So many years later, Emperor Gaozong of Song nearly held him to account, though that was a matter for another time. In February 1129, under a massive Jin offensive aimed at capturing Jiaogou at Songshan and Jianhai, he fled from Yingtian Prefecture to Yangzhou, then moved from Zhenjiang to Hangzhou. Along the way, imperial guards Miao Fu and Lu Zhengyan abused their power and, together with the powerful minister Wang Yuan and the eunuch Kang Lu, oppressed the people under the pretense of clearing out corrupt troops, stirring resentment. Eventually, they launched a mutiny. After killing Wang Yuan and Kang Lu, Mi and Lu plotted to control the emperor to command the lords, using the excuse that Zhao Gu's status was illegitimate to force him to abdicate in favor of the 3-year-old Prince Zhao Fu. After the upheaval, Zhao Gu was forced to leave the imperial palace in Hangzhou and move to the perilous Tiantong Temple, while power fell into the hands of Miao and Lu. The generals were not at his side, and Zhao Gu's situation was extremely precarious. At that moment, Zhang Jun, Liu Guangxi, Han Shizong, and many other generals quickly raised troops to protect the emperor. After pacifying the rebellious soldiers, Han Shizong galloped into the palace. Zhao Gu, standing at the brink of life and death, was so moved that tears streamed down his face. The two clasped hands and looked at each other with tears in their eyes. This act of saving the emperor left a deep impression on Emperor Gaozong's heart, becoming political capital that allowed Han Shizong to rise rapidly and a protective charm that safeguarded his life for many years afterward. After quelling the Miao Liu rebellion, Gaozong bestowed the calligraphy Guan Yu on Han Shizong and appointed him as acting junior guardian and military commissioner of Wusheng Zhaoqing army. Yet barely had the internal strife settled when, in July 1129, the Jin army once again divided into 3 routes and marched south, continuing their plot to kill Zhao Gu. Pursued relentlessly by the Jin, Zhao Gu once again fled desperately from Yingtian to Jiankang, then from Linan to Mingzhou, finally escaping across the sea to save himself. The Jin forces, commanded by Wanyan Zongbi, were powerful in numbers. However, unfamiliar with naval warfare, isolated deep in enemy territory, and hampered by the sweltering heat, they were forced to retreat. On their way back, Zongbi plundered the counties and prefectures along their route, amassing great spoils. As he prepared to cross from Zhenjiang into the Yangtze River and follow the Grand Canal northward, he unexpectedly fell into Han Shizong's ambush. Han Shizong had previously lain in wait at Jinshan, Zhenjiang, intending to kill the Jin commander while he was ashore and unguarded. The assassination attempt failed and Zongbi narrowly escaped. Enraged, he issued a direct challenge, sending a battle letter to fight a decisive engagement on the Yangtze the next day. The Jin army, though numbering 1,000,000, was largely unskilled at naval warfare, and their ships were merely civilian vessels seized along their march. Han Shizong, by contrast, commanded elite marines aboard standard warships. The next day, the Song Navy deployed Mengchong ships, huge battering ram vessels, and numerous disguised civilian boats to engage the Jin on the Yangtze. Although Han Shizhong's fleet was superior in quality, the enemy's overwhelming numbers made the battle a fierce stalemate. At the critical moment, his wife Liang Hongyu stood at the bow of the ship and personally beat the war drum. Its thunderous sound shook the sky, terrifying the Jin troops and inspiring the Song soldiers to a fever pitch. The tide of battle turned, and Han Shizhong won a great naval victory, preventing Wanyan Zongbi from crossing the river. The Jin could only flee upriver toward Jiangku, unaware that Han Shizhong was pursuing from the northern bank. In their panic, the Jin forces lost their way and became trapped in a deadwater bay on the Yangtze called Huangtiandang. For 48 days, Han Shizhong, with only 8,000 men, blockaded Zongbi's 100,000-strong army, hemming them in at Huangtiandang, unable to move. The once arrogant invaders, fierce in their southward campaign, were now completely demoralized. They repeatedly humbled themselves, begging for peace, pleading with Han Shizhong to grant them passage, and even offering to return all the loot they had stolen in exchange for their lives. Huangtiandang should have been the grave of Wanyan Zongbi and his 100,000 troops. Yet, at the most critical moment, a local Han betrayed his own people, revealing to Zongbi a path of escape and advising him how to break the encirclement, repel Han Shizhong's navy, and withdraw. Though the merits of Huangtiandang were ultimately diminished, Han Shizhong's feat of using few to defeat many 8,000 men, encircling 100,000 remained a miracle, greatly boosting the determination of the Southern Song's army and people to resist Jin aggression. From ancient times, the Song army had feared the Jin cavalry's charge and fled at their approach. But Zongbi's defeat forced the Jin to take the Southern Song's military strength seriously and to think twice before crossing the Yangtze. The Battle of Huangtiandang indeed played a critical role in stabilizing the Southern Song regime. In the years that followed, the flames of the Song-Jin War did not cease, while Jiang Jun, Liu Guangxi, Han Shizhong, and Yue Fei gradually matured in the crucible of battle, becoming illustrious generals whose great achievements earned the court's highest esteem. In 1139, Wanyan Zongbi launched a coup and renewed a full-scale offensive against the Southern Song. At times of peril, Emperor Gaozong Zhaogu needed famous generals like Yue Fei and Han Shizong to fight the Jin. Yet, when the situation stabilized, the three generals holding great armies and unmatched prestige became a source of unease in the emperor's heart. Thus, by publicly promoting them with titles while secretly stripping their military power, Zhaogu prepared to act against these three men. Among them, Zhang Jun was a sycophant, lacking integrity after being deprived of his command. He soon defected to Qin Hui's faction. The remaining two were Han Shizhong and Yue Fei. Han Shizhong, with great prestige and unwavering opposition to peace negotiations, had even secretly ordered his troops to attack Jin envoys, making him the primary target to be eliminated. To ensure the plan's success, Qin Hui even tried to secretly entice Yue Fei, urging him to fabricate accusations of treason against Han Shizhong. But Yue Fei, being a hero of unmatched virtue, refused outright. That very night, he wrote a letter to warn Han Shizhong, saying that villains at court were plotting harm and he must prepare himself. Upon hearing this, Han Shizhong hurried into the palace to see the emperor. That once iron-blooded and awe-inspiring general could only kneel and weep before Emperor Gaozong. Perhaps remembering the life-saving service Han Shizhong had rendered in the past, or perhaps moved by the countless scars that covered Han's body, Zhaogu felt a flicker of compassion. Han Shizhong then offered millions of strings of cash, 900,000 bushels of grain, and 15 reserve storehouses to the court, buying himself a way out permission to retire and preserve his life. From then on, Han Shizhong withdrew from the political stage, while Yue Fei, still holding military power and steadfast in his resistance against the Jin, became Qin Hui's ultimate target. In the end, Yue Fei was falsely accused of treason without evidence and, together with his son Yue Yun, was imprisoned. Facing this tragedy, none of the court officials dared to speak out. Only Han Shizhong, though retired, honorably confronted Qin Hui at home and bluntly asked, "How can the three words treason without evidence convince the world?" At the beginning of 1142, the god of war, Yue Fei, died unjustly. Han Shizhong foresaw that Qin Hui was destroying himself, that the bright chance to resist the Jin had been squandered, and that he himself was powerless to change events. Resolute, he resigned his post as chief counselor of the Secretariat, spent his days drowning his sorrow in wine, shut his doors to all visitors, and never again discussed military affairs. In the autumn of 1151, Han Shizhong fell gravely ill, and by the 8th month of that year, he died in Linan at the age of 63. The court posthumously honored him with the title of Grand Preceptor and enfeoffed him as Duke of Tongyi Commandery.